You think you're a good person? That your political opinions make you smarter, more moral, more righteous than the other side? Yeah, about that. You're not a hero. You're a tribal, irrational, self-righteous hypocrite, just like the rest of us. Welcome to reality, where your brain didn't evolve to seek truth. It evolved to win arguments, protect your tribe, and feel morally superior while doing it. Don't believe me? Good. That means you need this more than anyone. Let's tear down your inflated ego, one moral delusion at a time. Today we're breaking down the righteous mind, why good people are divided by politics and religion, a psychological Molotov cocktail by Jonathan Haidt, a moral psychologist who's made a career out of pointing out the uncomfortable truth. We don't think our way to morality. We feel our way there and slap on some lazy reasoning afterward. Sound offensive? Stick around. Disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only and falls under the Fair Use Act. We're transforming the content, giving it context, commentary, critique, and most importantly, calling out the collective BS society tries to peddle. Support the author. Buy the damn book. Haidt isn't some political pundit. He's not here to sell you a side. He's a scientist who spent decades digging into the psychological roots of our moral and political division. His core thesis? Our morality is driven by ancient instincts, tribal allegiances, and post-rational justifications. In short, you didn't vote for your candidate because you're informed. You did it because your moral elephant liked the vibe, and your inner rider just tried to sound smart afterward. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. Your intuition drives, you reasonize. What if I told you the voice in your head? That calm, articulate narrator who convinces you you're logical, reasonable, and smarter than the rest of the sheep is actually your PR team. Not the CEO, not the decision maker, just the one who writes the tweets after your gut already made the call. That's not metaphor. That's how your brain works. You see a headline, you feel something, you decide how you feel about it instantly, and then, boom, your brain gets to work, crafting a justification that makes you feel like you arrived at that conclusion with your big, smart brain. But in reality, your reasoning is just damage control. You're not rational, you're rationalizing. Jonathan Haidt puts it beautifully by comparing your mind to a rider on an elephant. The rider, that's your conscious reasoning. The elephant, that's your intuition. And here's the kicker, the elephant goes where it wants and the rider just tries to look in control. Let's break that down in real world terms. Think of your worst political argument, maybe with your uncle, your roommate, that rando on Twitter. Did either of you change your mind? No, because you weren't arguing to understand. You were arguing to win. You were performing, not persuading. And beneath all that smug, pseudo-rational BS was a big old elephant charging through the jungle of your emotions, your upbringing, your unconscious biases. This isn't just theory. Haidt digs into years of research, from moral psychology to neuroscience, to show that our moral judgments are fast, automatic, and emotionally charged. We feel first, we reason second, if at all. Take the classic incest experiment. A brother and sister, consenting adults, use protection. No harm, no foul. But ask people if it's wrong? Instant moral outrage. Why? Because our intuitive reaction screams you, and then our reasoning brain scrambles to come up with excuses. What if it causes emotional trauma? What if it sets a bad example? But none of those were the real reason. The real reason was gut instinct. The rest? PR spin. And before you go thinking this only applies to other people, slow your roll. You do it too. I do it. We all do. We're all elephants with riders trying to explain why we trampled the flowers. The real tragedy? We think we're reasoning creatures. We built universities, political systems, religions, entire civilizations on the myth that we're fundamentally rational. But really, we're just creatures of instinct who learned how to sound smart after the fact. Why does this matter? Because we're living in a world where moral outrage is currency. People tweet before thinking, cancel before questioning, and treat nuance like a threat. We've built echo chambers where our moral elephants run wild, unchecked, unchallenged, and unrepentant. And when two elephants meet in the jungle, they don't debate, they fight. You want to understand why the left and right hate each other? Why religious people and atheists talk past each other? Why you can't stand that one person in your group chat? It's because everyone's rider is desperately trying to justify the emotional charge their elephant already committed to. And guess what? Logic never stood a chance. Here's where it gets even more brutal. Even your most objective beliefs, science, justice, fairness, are shaped by intuition. They feel right to you, so you defend them. But what feels right to you may feel repugnant to someone else. And if you don't understand that, you're not moral, you're just arrogant. Now let me be very clear. Haidt doesn't say reasoning is useless. It's just not the driver. It's the press secretary, the lawyer, the marketing department. Its job isn't to find truth, it's to win. And when it's your beliefs on the line, your reasoning will contort itself into Olympic-level gymnastics to keep you feeling righteous. If you want to be truly moral, not just perform morality for likes and claps, you need to stop treating your gut feelings as gospel. You need to learn to challenge your own elephant, train it, question it, sit it down and say, "Hey big guy, maybe trampling that village isn't the move today." Otherwise, you're just another tribal ape, dressed up in Ivy League logic, playing tug of war with reality and calling it virtue. Key takeaway: your moral instincts drive your decisions. Your reasoning only shows up later to make it sound smart. If you don't know this, you're probably confusing moral intuition for moral superiority, and that's how we end up with Twitter mobs and culture wars. Favorite quote: "The mind is divided like a rider on an elephant, and the rider's job is to serve the elephant." The hidden elephant inside us all. So here's a truth most people will fight tooth and nail to avoid. Your conscious mind is not the boss. You're not in charge. You're a mascot, a well-dressed spokesmodel for decisions that were made deep in the wiring of your subconscious before your thinking brain even got the memo. Your life, your politics, your moral high ground, they're being puppeteered by something ancient, powerful, and irrational. And you're just the guy in the press room pretending it's all strategic. Cute. Let's make it even worse. You don't just ride an elephant, you are the elephant. You are a 6-ton meat beast made up of emotional impulses, biological instincts, tribal programming, and the rotting leftovers of evolutionary hacks. And that tiny little rational rider on your back? Yeah, he's more of a commentator than a commander. He's the color analyst while the game plays itself out. You don't change your mind through facts. You change your mind when your elephant wants to. And elephants don't care about facts. They care about vibes. Why do political debates almost never change anyone's mind? Because the rider isn't listening to arguments. He's busy crafting rebuttals. The elephant already decided. And it's not budging. Now here's the truly nasty bit. We believe we're being logical, even as we twist facts into pretzels to justify whatever our moral gut already believes. You see this in courtroom juries, religious conversions, Reddit threads, and especially on Twitter, where a whole generation is riding elephants while pretending they're philosophers. And Haidt shows us it's not a fluke. It's how the brain works. It's how it has to work. Let's talk persuasion, because if you're still holding on to the fantasy that humans are truth-seeking missiles, it's time to crush that dream. Haidt digs into the research. When people read arguments that support their own view, they think, is this something I can agree with? When they read arguments that challenge them, they ask, is there any reason I can reject this? It's two different modes. One opens the gate, the other puts a sniper on the roof. You're not seeking truth, you're defending your tribe's honor like it's the Super Bowl. We are not designed to find truth, we're designed to win social arguments. That's why reason evolved, not to understand the world, but to signal loyalty and boost status. You're not trying to get it right, you're trying to get applause. Reason is just tribal warfare with big words. This is why political reasoning is such a blood sport. People don't vote based on policy. They vote based on whether the candidate feels like their kind of person. They want to know, does he care about what I care about? Is he on my team? If the vibes match, then they go digging for reasons to justify it. You think people switch teams because someone had a better argument? No, They switch when their elephant sees something that makes it feel wrong or right. And that's the secret source of influence, narrative, story, identity. You don't win hearts and minds with pie charts. You win with a story that lights up someone's internal moral wiring. Haidt doesn't just throw this out as a theory, he shows it. Our moral emotions evolved to keep us in good standing with our group. We developed instincts for loyalty, hierarchy, reciprocity, all the things that keep chimps from ripping each other's faces off. Morality isn't a code, it's a social glue. Here's what makes this even more uncomfortable. We actually reward people for being blind to their own biases. We love the ones who stick to their guns, who never back down. We celebrate the stubborn elephant as strength. Meanwhile, those who dare to change their minds are painted as weak, flip-flopping, selling out. So we double down on stupidity just to stay loyal. Think about your own side, your party, your community, your ideology. How often do you question it? Be honest. When was the last time you read something that genuinely challenged you and thought, maybe I've got this wrong? Probably never. Because in the land of moral elephants, nuance is heresy. You want to know why so many brilliant people believe such absurd things? Because brilliance doesn't exempt you from bias. In fact, it makes you better at defending it. Smart people are just better riders. They craft more convincing arguments for the direction the elephant's already going. That's not wisdom, that's just tribal loyalty with a bigger vocabulary. So what's the move here? How do we not become walking propaganda machines for our own subconscious? You stop pretending your rationality is pure. You acknowledge the elephant. You get humble. You recognize that moral conviction is not the same thing as moral correctness. And above all, you start listening not to what people believe, but to why they feel it. Because underneath every position is a value, a fear, a story, not a thesis statement. Until you get that, you're not debating ideas. You're just throwing bricks from your side of the moral wall and calling it dialogue. Key takeaway: emotion makes the decisions. Reason shows up after to spin the press release. If you want to actually persuade someone or grow yourself, stop aiming for their intellect and start understanding their moral intuitions. Favorite quote: conscious reasoning functions like a press secretary who automatically justifies any position taken by the president. Taste buds of morality. Alright, let's rip into something that will probably make you squirm. You've been raised to believe your sense of morality is the gold standard, objective, rational, and fair. But the truth? It's as narrow, weird, and culturally biased as a gluten-free pancake from Portland. And yes, if you're from a modern Western country, especially if you're college-educated, individualistic, secular, and allergic to tradition, your moral compass isn't universal. It's weird. That's not slang. It stands for Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, and it's distorting your entire view of the world. Here's the bomb. Haidt drops. If you've been spoon-fed Western liberal values your whole life, you're running on a stripped-down moral software, a beta version that barely scratches the surface of what humans are capable of valuing. You prioritize harm and fairness like they're the only two flavors in the moral kitchen. But the rest of the world? They're running on the full damn spice rack. Loyalty, authority, sanctity, liberty, community, things you've probably been taught to dismiss as old-fashioned or oppressive. Congrats, your moral worldview is culturally underdeveloped. Most Americans, especially those in the liberal camp, see morality as simple. Don't hurt people and treat everyone fairly. That's it, the end. Now cue the self-righteous TED Talks. But Haidt, after traveling to Brazil, India, and diving into real anthropological research, not just philosophy classroom hypotheticals, came back with a gut punch. Other cultures think that's cute. Morality isn't just about harm or fairness. It's about what's sacred. It's about your role in the group. It's about respecting tradition, hierarchy, even taboo. It's about binding, not just freeing. Let's stop pretending for a second that liberating people from tradition always makes them better. It doesn't. Sometimes tradition exists for reasons that aren't immediately obvious. In weird cultures, the individual is God. You do you. Don't judge. Be yourself. Challenge authority. Express everything. But outside that bubble, People often live with the understanding that personal freedom without moral boundaries turns into cultural rot, that community matters, that maybe your grandma's rituals weren't just superstition, maybe they were scaffolding for human sanity. And here's where it gets interesting. Haidt compares our moral sense to taste buds. You might love salty and sweet, but there's also sour, bitter, umami. And just because your culture decided spicy is bad doesn't mean it actually is. If you've been raised to only detect harm and fairness, then of course purity or loyalty seem weird, even dangerous. But if your morality doesn't include those, you're playing chess with half the pieces missing. You're trying to lead an orchestra when you've only ever heard a kazoo. This is why cross-cultural communication fails so often. You see someone defending a religious tradition and scream intolerant, but to them you look like a disrespectful moral anarchist. You worship freedom, they worship honor. You value individuality, they value duty. You think they're brainwashed, they think you're rootless. And guess what? You're both wrong, and both right. The deeper point Haidt makes, the one that should make you feel genuinely uncomfortable, is that people on the left tend to emphasize only a sliver of the moral matrix. They spike hard on care and fairness, but when it comes to loyalty, authority, and sanctity, flatline. Meanwhile, conservatives, religious communities, and traditional cultures score across all 6 domains. It's not because they're more moral, it's because they recognize more axes of morality. They're operating on surround sound while you're still playing morality through a single AirPod. Now let's talk about the taste buds you've probably ignored your whole life. Loyalty. Sounds tribal, right? Good, it is. But humans are tribal animals. Loyalty builds teams, it builds nations. And when you mock it as groupthink, you miss that it's also what makes soldiers die for each other, what holds families together, and what makes people give a damn about their communities. Authority. The rebel in you is already itching, but healthy authority isn't oppression, it's structure. Without it, society collapses into chaos. You know what authority does? It tells you to shut up, listen, and learn. Not everything you feel is truth, and not everyone older than you is automatically a fool. Sanctity, the most triggering one of all. You hear that word and think purity rings, abstinence clubs, and people banning books. But sanctity, in the moral sense, is about respecting what we hold sacred, and every culture holds something sacred, even secular ones. You think your body is yours? You eat clean? Avoid GMOs? Congrats, that's sanctity. You're just applying it to kale instead of churches. Haidt's brilliance is in calling all this out without vilifying any side. But I'm not here to be gentle. I'm here to hold a mirror to your smug little echo chamber and say this. If you think your version of morality is the only valid one, you're not enlightened. You're just culturally sheltered. You're a moral minimalist, a child who thinks the whole world should fit into their sandbox rules. It's time to upgrade your palate, expand your moral taste. Because if you keep walking into global conversations with nothing but harm and fairness in your toolkit, you're going to keep misunderstanding and misjudging most of humanity. Key takeaway. Morality isn't one size fits all. If you only recognize care and fairness, you're morally tone deaf to most of the world. Stop pretending your culture's values are universal. They're just local settings in a global moral operating system. Favorite quote, "The moral domain varies across cultures, but it is usually broader, not narrower, than in the Western secular context." Why politics feels like war. Let's talk about war. Not the kind with guns and flags. The kind where everyone wears hashtags, screams through comment sections, and weaponizes moral outrage like it's a damn superpower. Because what we call politics today, it's not a debate, it's a tribal bloodbath, a gladiator arena for moral posturing. You think you're arguing policy? Please, you're fighting for your identity, and you'll burn the village down before you let your moral team lose. You're not arguing to solve problems. You're arguing to prove you're one of the good ones. You think voting red or blue says something about your intelligence, your compassion, your soul. That's the first delusion. The second, you believe the other side is evil. Not wrong, evil. And if they're evil, you don't need to understand them, right? You just need to beat them, cancel them, shame them, destroy them. That's the team sport morality Haidt is here to expose. And if you're uncomfortable, good. It means your elephant's starting to squirm. Now here's the kicker. Both sides think they're fighting for truth, but they're really just fighting from different maps, different moral foundations. Haidt lays them out like a psychological periodic table. Care, fairness, loyalty, authority, sanctity, and liberty. Liberals tend to spike on care and fairness. Conservatives use all six. That's not a value judgment. That's a functional difference. One side is playing checkers. The other side is playing chess with twice the board. Let's unpack it, slowly, but painfully. Care and fairness are the liberal bread and butter. If someone's hurt, marginalized, vulnerable, the moral alarm goes off. It's all about protecting victims and leveling the playing field. Beautiful values, noble, necessary. But when those are your only tools, you end up blind to why traditions, hierarchies, and collective identity even exist. You dismiss loyalty as nationalism, authority as oppression, sanctity as superstition. You act shocked when half the country revolts because in your world, only two things matter. Is it fair and does it help the weak? But humans aren't just social justice calculators. We're social animals with tribal wiring. Conservatives, love them or hate them, get that. They understand that a society isn't built only on protecting victims. It's built on loyalty to the group, respect for legitimate authority, and a sense of the sacred that bonds people across generations. These aren't random. They evolved because they worked. They kept tribes alive when the wolves circled. They keep cultures coherent when chaos knocks. And when conservatives feel these foundations under attack, when you mock patriotism, dismantle family structure, or treat religion like a disease, they don't just disagree. They feel morally assaulted, not because they're dumb, because you're stomping on moral values they consider just as valid as yours, maybe more so. Haidt isn't saying conservatives are better, he's saying they're broader. They speak all six moral languages, while liberals often ignore four of them. That doesn't make liberals wrong, it makes them limited. It also makes them bad at persuasion. You can't win hearts you don't understand. You can't unify a nation with only two strings on your moral guitar. And yet, here we are, screaming past each other in political echo chambers, shocked, just shocked, that the other side doesn't respond to our outrage. You post a meme about equity and expect a MAGA voter to change his mind. Come on, that's not activism, that's moral narcissism. You want to influence people? Learn their language, understand their values. Don't dismiss loyalty, show how your cause builds it. Don't trash authority, become worthy of it. Don't fear sanctity, define what's sacred to you and live it loudly. That's moral maturity. Not just spouting your values louder, but learning how to connect across divides that feel sacred. This isn't about being centrist or mushy. It's about getting out of your ideological fetal position and realizing that moral truth isn't yours alone. The world isn't split into good people who agree with you and villains who vote differently. It's made of humans, complex, tribal, scared, devoted, flawed, faithful humans who are trying to survive with their own moral operating systems. And if you keep treating politics like it's your personal religion, where disagreement is heresy and compromise is betrayal, you're not fighting for justice, you're fighting for your team's dominance. That's not virtue, that's moral warfare, and the only prize is scorched earth. Key takeaway: moral values are not universal. Conservatives use more moral foundations, not better ones, more. If you don't understand that, you'll keep losing arguments, elections, and any hope of actually changing minds. Favorite quote: Republicans understand moral psychology. Democrats don't. And if Democrats want to understand what makes people vote Republican, they must first understand the full range of moral intuitions. Hives are beautiful until they blind you. You think you're an individual, a special snowflake, a one-of-a-kind moral thinker with free will and independent thought. But let's get real. You're a walking hive drone, a meat puppet for groupthink, a tribal primate pretending to be an enlightened intellectual. And the moment your tribe claps, you dance. That's not judgment, that's biology. Welcome to the hard truth. You were built for the hive. Here's what nobody wants to admit. We're not just selfish creatures trying to win solo games, we're hive creatures. That's why you can get chills when your team wins, cry during a national anthem, or march in sync at a protest without even knowing why it moves you. That's not your reasoning mind, that's the hive switch being flipped. Jonathan Haidt shatters the myth that humans are only rational individuals by exposing something far more powerful. We're tribal animals who crave belonging so deeply we'll rewrite reality to stay aligned with our group. That's not a flaw, that's an evolutionary feature. We didn't survive the savannah because we outreasoned lions. We survived because we formed moral communities, built rituals, followed hierarchies, and created systems that kept our tribes tight and strangers out. We're wired to bond, but bonding comes at a cost. The moment your hive switch flips on, the moment you feel us versus them, your capacity for reason, nuance, and empathy toward outsiders evaporates like spit on asphalt. You become a different creature. You're not you anymore. You're a neuron in a giant tribal brain. You don't ask questions, you amplify, you defend, you obey. This explains why people suddenly become fanatical during political movements, religious conversions, and even sports rivalries. When you feel like you're part of something bigger, when the hive switch activates, your self dissolves. You get high off unity, and Haidt isn't being poetic here, he means it literally. Group activities like dancing, chanting, marching, even worship, they alter your consciousness. They flip the switch. You feel euphoric, righteous, invincible. But here's the gut punch. That same unity that makes you feel transcendent is the exact mechanism that makes you dangerous. The same hive wiring that fuels charity and heroism also fuels genocide, mob justice, and blind loyalty. It's a feature, not a bug. Humans form moral communities, then protect them at all costs, including reason, including truth, including basic decency. Still think you're above this? Let's talk about social media. You join an online community that shares your values. They validate you. You feel seen. Then one day, someone posts a slightly different opinion, maybe even a reasonable one, and you watch the hive turn. They get swarmed, doxed, cancelled, and what do? You nod along. Or worse, you join in, because the hive rewards loyalty, not integrity. You get points for attacking outsiders, not for thinking critically. Haidt compares this to our evolutionary shift from chimps to bees. Chimps are selfish, political, manipulative, but humans, we're part bee. We can transcend self-interest for the sake of the group, but unlike bees, we don't do it automatically. We flip into it, and sometimes we never flip back. That's why religions, military units, sports teams, and activist movements all use the same tools: ritual, sacrifice, moral rules, shared enemies. They know how to flip the switch, because once you're inside the hive, logic dies, and loyalty becomes law. You don't need truth, you need togetherness, but unity without self-awareness is a shortcut to horror. Hitler didn't rise to power by offering rational policy proposals. He offered belonging, purpose, a tribe, and once the German hive activated, millions of ordinary people did unspeakable things in the name of us. The same mechanism that fuels unity can create monsters, and if you think that could never be you, that you're too smart, too modern, too educated, you're exactly the kind of person most vulnerable to the hive, because the hive isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like clapping for a flag, or repeating a slogan, or attacking someone online who asked the wrong question, and every time you silence your doubt, every time you choose group loyalty over intellectual honesty, you trade your humanity for belonging. But that doesn't mean the hive is evil, it just means it's powerful, it gives us purpose, it makes us better when used consciously. When we serve a group that truly elevates us, that challenges us to grow, that honors dissent, that's when the hive can make heroes. But when we serve a group that demands blind obedience, moral purity, and absolute allegiance, that's when it breaks us. You need to ask yourself this: am I part of a hive that makes me more human? Or less? Key takeaway: humans are hive creatures. We crave unity so deeply we'll sacrifice truth, logic, and morality to protect our group. The hive can elevate you or erase you. Know the difference before you lose yourself inside it. Favorite quote, human beings are 90% chimp and 10% bee. Religion, politics, and civil discourse. Alright, brace yourself. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because now we're diving into the sacred cows, the ones with hashtags, crosses, protest signs, and prayer hands. We're talking about religion, politics, the deep, emotional, tribal bonds that you pretend are all about reason and logic, but are really about identity, belonging, and the desperate need to be one of the good ones. Let's start here. Religion isn't just belief in the supernatural. It's not about invisible sky gods and moral rulebooks you can cherry pick from. Religion is, at its core, a group binding mechanism. It's tribal glue. It's the social technology that hacks your biology and makes you feel something bigger than yourself. Don't believe in God? Cool, but you're probably still religious. You just call your gods social justice, or science, or patriotism, or whatever ideology you tattooed onto your identity like it makes you virtuous. Jonathan Haidt smashes the naive Western view that religion is irrational superstition. He says, look deeper. Religion didn't survive because it's true. It survived because it works. It builds trust. It creates unity. It binds people into moral communities that cooperate, sacrifice, and raise kids without murdering each other. It's the social equivalent of fire, dangerous when misused, but vital when controlled. Now, if you're a hardcore rationalist, this offends you. But religion is divisive. Religion causes war, sure. But so does nationalism, so does politics, so does your Twitter account. Haidt flips the script. He says, stop asking if religion is true and start asking what it does. You might not like the stories, but the structure, it's effective. Religions bind groups and shape moral behavior in ways that make societies function or collapse when it's gone. Now here's where things get real. Politics is just religion for people who think they're too smart for religion. You still have sacred values. Still chant your rituals, still follow your prophets, whether they're pastors, podcasters, or professors. And you sure as hell have blasphemies. Say the wrong thing on Twitter and watch how fast your tribe sacrifices you on the altar of ideological purity. The brutal truth is, every tribe, religious or secular, creates moral rules that protect its cohesion. And once you're in the tribe, you stop thinking critically. You defend the team. You call it debate, but you're really just sharpening weapons. The more you hate the other side, the more loyal your side thinks you are. This is why Jonathan says civil discourse is dying, because we're not trying to understand, so we're trying to signal purity. You don't ask, what can I learn? You ask, will my side approve of me saying this? And the moment someone disagrees, you don't see a fellow human, you see a heretic. And what do tribes do to heretics? They purge them, cancel them, dismiss them as immoral, brainwashed, or evil. We've built a moral landscape where disagreement equals betrayal, where nuance is weakness, where empathy is treason, and that's how civilization fractures, not from disagreement, but from the belief that only your tribe owns the moral high ground. Haidt's plea isn't to give up your beliefs, it's to see them for what they are, tribal moral frameworks. Useful, flawed, emotional, and often beautiful, but not universal, not absolute. If you want real discourse, real change, real connection, you have to stop playing moral king of the hill. You have to stop pretending that your side's moral story is the whole truth. The bridge isn't built with facts, it's built with empathy. And that's hard, because empathy requires humility. It means you might be wrong. It means the other side might be human. It means your sacred values might not be as sacred to someone else. And that doesn't make them evil. It makes them different. So before you unload your next debate me tweet, ask yourself, do I want to understand or do I want to win? Because you can't do both. One demands dominance, the other demands grace. Key takeaway, religion and politics function as moral tribes. True discourse begins when we stop mistaking sacred values for universal truths and start practicing empathy across those tribal lines. Favorite quote, morality binds and blinds. It binds us into teams that circle around sacred values, but it blinds us to the fact that each team has a point. That's the end of this moral autopsy. You're not a lone thinker, You're a tribal animal with a taste for righteousness, and if you want to rise above the noise, you better learn how your own mind works before you keep pretending to fix the world. Conclusion: let's not sugarcoat it. If you got to this point and still think you're the morally enlightened hero in a world full of idiots, you missed the entire damn point. This book isn't about proving you're right. It's about realizing you never were. Your intuition is in charge. Your reasoning is its PR team. And your morality, it's tribal, emotional, and fragile, just like everyone else's. Jonathan Haidt held up a mirror, and if what you saw made you squirm, that's the good news. That's where growth starts. The bad news? Most people will never get there. They'll keep tweeting from their echo chambers, confusing outrage for virtue, and thinking empathy is weakness. Don't be most people. Buy the book. Seriously. Support work that slaps, not panders. It's dense, uncomfortable, brilliant, and necessary. Now, if you're sick of shallow thinking, if you want more content that kicks your beliefs in the teeth, hit like, punch subscribe, and tell the algorithm you're done with intellectual junk food.